Very cool. Very cool. Um, trying to understand a little bit more about the. Are there any instances where you would not recommend? Obviously, you mentioned when there's too many nodes in one location or antennas. Are there any other instances where people should not get into it, or it'd be a bad location?
Sure. So there's a couple of actually warnings that are provided by Helium on or guidance on what not to do if they do not have windows, if there is not a clear line of sight, if there is any special glass that's utilized, specifically glass that has metal-based tint to it, which a lot of these newer buildings have. It gives a really cool like mirror effect and all that whole like chromatic look, but that's also not helpful for the signal and getting it out. I've encountered that in the past, and it was as simple enough as just putting it outside and getting that to work, but it clearly showed us that it was something to do with the glass. That's an issue. Folks that have screens that aren't removable, or any type of bars like that on their windows. I mean, it's not something we ran into a lot, but I would imagine it wouldn't fare well. Instances where, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them already there. If someone is in one of those like apartment buildings that have like a center in the middle of it and the balconies just face other apartments, they literally have a picture of that in the Helium app and tell you don't put it here because it's just going to be in like a brick box and the signal will never be able to get anywhere. There's some instances where, the topography, if you're really low elevation, and then suddenly right after you and everything around you is suddenly much higher up and you're kind of like in a valley and that valley is not very wide, there's not enough valley there for you to even connect with, that wouldn't be good. And then obviously, based off the country, whether or not they have the bands and whether or not the equipment's going to work there. There's obviously limitations. A lot of the third world also. There's some cases where they are deploying it. There's a lot of instances where they don't even have that infrastructure to support it. So you have situations like that. Nothing else really that comes to mind. Really just like HOAs. Some communities, some of the aesthetics behind it. You can always have it inside and they have a little stock antenna. We rarely use those long term. That's really more just until a lot of times, a lot of our deployments are exterior. They're high up, they're on people's roofs. You can see that it's there. It does a lot better that way. You can certainly deploy indoors as well, but there's going to be limitations. You're not going to do it as well as it being outside. So, neighbors, HOAs, if they have some sort of policy, sometimes you need some approvals. I've had to do that for one gentleman whose neighbor was really adamant about why that antenna is there. I think they were under the notion that that was being used to spy on them or something like that. So we had to provide the specs and documentation and what's LoRaWAN and what's Helium and why are we doing this and all that. But it worked out. It's kind of funny, but
yeah, you can share the neighbor of this podcast next time. Save you some time.